Here is one of a series of talks by spiritual leader Lola McDowell Lee, spanning 2 decades from the early 70s through the 90s. Lola was a Zen Roshi, whose Rinzai lineage included Dr. Henry Platov and renowned Zen master Shigetsu Sasaki. Lola was a religious scholar as well as an ordained Christian minister. While the talks are focused mainly on Zen and Buddhism, Lola drew on many spiritual traditions, including those of Jesus, Plato, Lao Tzu, the Hindu Vedas, Meister Eckhart, and Gurdjieff.
This is kind of an unusual little story. And it starts out with old thorns. I'm going to talk about thorns. Old thorns and old priests should be left alone. There is a power in them if they want to use it. And there was a time in Ireland when everybody believed this. And just maybe they were right. But, better to go along with it than to be sorry. Anyway, there was this fellow at one time, and he was very fond of the drink. Worse still, he had a wife and a family, and the way he was drinking himself out of house and habitation, they were just living on the clippings. She was sick, sore, and tired of scolding him, and tired of asking him to have some sense. So in the end, not knowing what to do, she went to the parish priest. And he listened to her story, and he said he would see what he could do. So on a day when there was some kind of celebration in town, in the little village, and the priest knew that this man would be there, and he wouldn't leave the public house, the little pub, until he lowered every cent in his pocket down the red lane. So the priest went to the village, and he saw the man heading for the public house, and he called him over. And he said, "I forbid you to go in there this day." "Oh, only one drink, Father, and then I'm going home to my wife and children." "One drink," said the priest, "will lead to another drink, and another, and another, until you go home with 2 legs plating under you. Now listen here. I don't want to use my power, but if you go inside the public house today, or let drink wet your lips, I'll turn you into a mouse by 12 o'clock tonight." And at that, the priest turned, and he walked away home. And our man turned, and he walked away home also. He didn't want to draw the anger of the priest on him, and he believed that this priest had the power. But he wasn't far outside the village on his way home, and who does he meet but an old pal who'd been for years in England or America or where, and he was just home. Well, you know how it is. Handshakes and talk and all this whatnot. And before our man knew where he was with his pal back in the public house in the village, and he didn't leave it until he couldn't see a hole in the ladder. And it was dark, down night, when he got as far as his own house. And his wife, Mary, was sitting lamenting to herself beside the fire. And he staggered in, and he looked at the mantelpiece, and he could see the clock all right, but he was just that cross-eyed with drink that he couldn't tell what time it was, you know. Mary, says he, what time is it? And she says, what time do you think? It's a few minutes off midnight. Mary, says he, if you see me getting wee and hairy, would you put out the bloody cat? Here we are now with this Chinese man by the name of Lao Tzu, who lived 2,500 years ago. I would have liked to have been there with him. 30 spokes united in one knave, and on that which is non-existent, on the hole in the knave, think of all holes in the ladder, makes the ladder, doesn't it? Depends the wheel's clay is molded into a vessel, and on that which is non-existent, on its hollowness, depends the vessel's utility. By cutting out doors and windows, we build a house, and on that which is non-existent, the empty space, and on that which is non-existent, within, depends the house's utility. Right? Right. What about your mind? You've got an empty mind, otherwise you wouldn't be able to think. And all you do is look at the thinking instead of the mind. Therefore, existence renders actual. Existence renders actual, but non-existence renders useful. Now I gotta worry about that. Would you like a glass of water, Rosalind? Huh? Here. Could you give her some water? Thank you. I don't want her to come down with a cold. I just think that's awful. If she's going to do that, I'm going to send her home. Okay. Okay, so now we have this empty mind, which we don't even see. We don't recognize, because we don't recognize emptiness. Strange, isn't it? We think empty, and it's an image, but real empty, difficult. So in our ever-present thinking, you know, all these thoughts going through. And we think about all kinds of things. I mean, all kinds of things. We think about politics. We think about the other sex. We think about little children. We think about freedom. We think about justice. We think about equality. We think about religion. We think about purpose. We think about meaning. And we discriminate. And we judge. Etc., etc., etc. All the things you think about. Und so weiter, und so weiter, und so weiter. Huh? Nado, nado. Now, in this country, we say, and we labor under this saying, that we are all equal. We are all equal. Then usually we hastily qualify this and say we are all equal before the law. Or we may say we are all equal in the eyes of God. Well, you know, after all, we are all His children. You know, the trouble is some parents do favor one over the other. So anyway, are we equal? Are we? children go to school, and some children excel, and so they're regarded as numero uno, ichiban. Number one in the class. Some are not capable of very much, and they remain at what we call the bottom of the class, and the rest all run around in the middle. Who is equal? And what is equal? The children that are at the bottom of the class can't do any more than they do. They're just not capable. The children at the top of the class can do much more. They can accept challenges easier. How do we make them equal? Well, up until now, what we've tried to do is pull the top ones down to the bottom. Is this really what we want to do? Is this really equality? And we are equal in the eyes of the law. Let's leave school out of it. We're equal in the eyes of the law. And yet, in my lifetime, I have seen the law swing back and forth. Sometimes, in some decades, the law is on the side of the victim. And other times, in some decades, it's on the side of the wrongdoer. See? And yet, we're all equal. Wrongdoer and victim, we're equal. Which one do you want to be? They're equal, we say. And so, well, now, justice has got to come in here someplace. Justice. And we want justice. We do indeed. We want justice. Someone does something to hurt me, and he must be punished. Right? Yeah. I do wrong to somebody else, and I say to myself, I hope they don't discover it was me. We're justice we're looking for, huh? See, and of course this is why they have this statue of justice, and she's got the scales and so on and so on, but she's blindfolded. She's blind. Justice is blind. Yeah. And we live in a kind of a Russian roulette game. Problems come about. And the problems are solved. But how they're solved, we don't really know. We walk across the street, and there are people before us and there are people behind us. Walk across the street, and the person behind me is hit by a car. Why did it miss me? Why did it hit that person? Well, that person must have been doing something that they shouldn't have been doing, we say. Or it's karma or something, words. Because, we have dreamed up some answers. That is, we have concocted them, And the answers to us sound mostly very logical, and they're very persuasive. But they're points of view, aren't they? We concocted them. So what really goes on? All this world, where and what is justice? Leaving aside our points of view that we have put together. Now, I have said, and I continue to say, and I do say, that there are in this universe energies, and there are forces of which we are quite unaware. And they are operating all of the time, and of this I am quite convinced. not much comes about because of demands that I make. You would all be enlightened. And what happened to you? Yeah. Now, of course, and we have the so-called groups, the groups that are so-called religions, and they ask for watches and for cars and jobs and houses and now and then they get them even. I mean, it's kind of like this fellow that he was deciding to, he was going to join a certain faction, a certain church group, and he thought he'd test it out first. And his son, he wanted his son desperately to have a job, and the son was pretty lazy about getting one. So he prayed and he said to God, if you'll get my son a job within 15 days, I will join this church. And within 15 days, the son had a job, a very nice one. So the fellow joins the church. And from then on, God forgot to listen to him. Nothing. And we have ideas. Once in a while, they go through, where they come from, heaven only knows. And it seems good, this idea. So we say to ourselves, well, let's get out of the way and let this thing happen. It seems like a good idea. Let it happen if it will. If it won't, well, maybe the world will be no better off than it is now without this thing happening, and certainly no worse off than previously. Or me either. Save me a lot of work, maybe. I sometimes wonder, you look back at this panorama of history, how many events and how many ideas in all of these people that have come and gone, whose ideas, maybe really good, great ideas, have been thwarted. How many ideas have come into fruition that perhaps should not have? Aided and abetted by what? We don't know. So we are here in this world, and we should observe what is passing by. We should watch this world, and we should observe it and ourselves in it. We are here for a view, not necessarily to be identified with it, not necessarily to be overcome by it, not necessarily to be so involved. We are here for a view. Now, it was said by a Zen master by the name of Josan, and I quote, Shin-myo, which means real existence. Shin-myo comes into this world of birth and death, being disturbed by the force of mumyo, which is delusion. Shin-myo disturbed by the force of mumyo, and then this shin-myo becomes all this world of relativity. Now, according to this theory, it is clear that shin-myo has the nature to become the things of the universe. If shin-myo, which is real existence, had not such nature, it could not change into the world of relativity stimulated by the force of mumyo. And this, he goes on to say, is often compared to the relation to water and waves, this ocean theory. Water ripples in the wind in accordance with its nature to move. Shinmyo had not the nature to bring forth all things, they could not come into being. And it is so with Mu. If Mu had not the cause of everything, as Shinmyo does, nothing could develop. All things are relative on one side and are absolute on the other side. And as for the grasping of this relation, it does not exist in the absolute nor in the relativity. You know, the ocean out there, the water is moving all the time. It's moving because of a force flowing over it. And it moves according to its own nature. So, now we are here in this world, and it's called the changing world of birth and death. Let us view it. What have we got to view? All the relativity. And then in all this relativity, because it is what it is, we can find the absolute. Now, maybe if we did this, why, this would allow us some freedom. Because after all, freedom does mean, in this world of relativity, freedom does mean that each of us has the choice to be what you want to be. You have that choice. Always you have that choice to be what you want to be. You can choose this. I want to be a dignified type of person. I want to be a person of great character. I want to be a gentle woman or a gentle man in the old sense of the word. Or I want to have such and such kind of a job. I have an image. I would like to do this. All these things you can do something about. You may never be a perfect gentleman or a perfect gentlewoman, and you may choose a job, let us say, of a hairdresser. And maybe you will never be a perfect hairdresser, but by golly, you can learn how to be it, how to do it. You always have the choice. You have a freedom of choosing what you want. In all these relative things that are coming and going. Yeah. Now, some of us have talents in one direction, and some of us have talents in another direction, so that a group is made up of many talents. And this is what we should take in and appreciate, rather than saying, oh, he thinks that way, I don't think that way. Oh, and they argue. And we should instead looking at these talents and gathering them in. We all of us have talents in different directions. Yeah. Now, if we are guided by our own talents, you know, this affinity of things which we can do. Some people can use a typewriter, some people can't. Some people can play the piano, some people can't. Some people watch a TV, some people, it makes them nervous and they can't. I mean, we each have our own thing, you know. Each of us have our own talents, what we can do. And we should see these talents in ourselves, and we should improve upon them. relative freedom, freedom in relativity, freedom, a relative freedom we have. But if we are motivated by our greed and by our desires and by our envy to be like someone else, you see, to be motivated by envy, it does not allow very much room in us to develop our own talents, because we're so busy trying to develop those which we think another one has. Now, this is not freedom. We're too busy trying to be the person that we desire to be, that we have imaged. This is not improving on yourself in some ways. In some ways it could be, depending on the type of person that you choose to imitate or emulate or so on. But just in trying to be like another person, there isn't any freedom. No, we have such a diversity. Talents. If we each set about looking at ourselves and trying to develop the talents that we were born with, immediately we would see there is no equality. Now, if we all had to live according to a status quo, there would be not much freedom to take your own measure. Because it would be a measure that was set up by somebody else, by some committee, by something, to which we must conform. That does nothing to bring a talent out in me. And then, of course, but it would be that we would seem to be equal. And the more we seemed to be equal, then the average person with talents waiting to be developed would just drop lower and lower. What else could he do? Because it is in the striving. It is striving to do, striving to bring out this talent, striving to make this, to improve upon this talent. It is in here that we find ourselves. The little quip that I liked and I found, somebody was talking about the work ethic in this country, is so mutilated. And the person was rather denouncing it, and he says, personally, I don't like to work, but he says, I have found one thing, that it is in the work that I find myself. You see, it is in this striving that you see things about yourself, that you find yourself. If you don't strive, if you don't work, you go to work and you do the very best you can with all the talents that you have. You don't just sit there and let the day go by because, well, I'm being paid to sit at the desk. You put something into it, and then you get something out because you see yourself. It is in work we find ourselves. It is in the striving that we find ourselves, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. Striving builds. And it doesn't build equality and it doesn't build justice, but it builds a path to a human being. Then you've got freedom. Well, I really got off on. Of course, there's a problem with freedom and relativity, We have to make a choice. And this is so difficult, Always this choice seems to reside in us. What am I? I see a problem, you see, and I not only see two sides to it, I see 20, My God in heaven, what am I going to do with all of this? You know? And I've got to choose. And there are instances where I do have to choose. What am I going to do? Well, freedom means that we take the responsibility of this choice unto ourselves. If we don't want freedom, we're going to find all kinds of ways to avoid it. We will find some means of bondage. And it is surprising. We seek freedom in some areas, and in some areas we seek bondage. See, it's not a total black and white thing. And you can see the choices that you make all through the day. You know, some people commit crimes so that they can go to jail. They want to be in jail. People that have been in jail, they're out 5 days and they commit a crime and are sent right back again because that's where they want to be. That bondage is their security. They don't have to make any choice. They're told when they have to get up, when they eat. They're told what kind of jobs they can do. They have no freedom. This is for them security, this bondage. They're not looking for freedom because they don't want to make a choice. And we don't really like to walk by ourselves, you know. We want somebody not only to walk with us, but to prod us along a little bit, you know. It's too soft. As long as we rely, we can and do rely on someone else, we don't have to worry. It's like the story I told last week about Nanin, whose teacher sent him out in the dark. It was night. It's dark. And he gives him a candle, and he lights it. And then as this poor guy steps out the door into the dark, here's the candle out like this, the teacher blows it out. Now he is in the dark. Huh? He is in his own darkness. See? The teacher closed the door. And then, of course, we know how grateful he was in later years that this teacher had forced him into his own darkness. It is our own darkness that we have to plow through in order to be a lamp unto ourselves. Yeah. Now, how come we have got any freedom whatsoever? You're free to stay, you're free to go, you're free to wear certain kinds of clothes or not wear certain kinds of clothes. You're free to study this or not to study this. You're free to watch the television or not, certain things on television, or not free to watch, We're free, in a manner of speaking. But you know how it is in this world? It's kind of like we're in a classroom, and the classroom is full. It's full of students. And the teacher's missing. Now, what happens when the teacher's missing? The kids go bananas, boy. Anything we know, anything goes now. Oh, boy, she's gone. Oh, sure. And so the teacher is actually standing at the back of the room, and looks at all this devastation that is going on. What to do? It is in this world, in our relative world, it is a very profound and mysterious and yet a very distinctive quality that God is and yet is absent. He is, but to us, he doesn't seem to be present. And yet he's everywhere. He's everywhere. There is not an inch of space without. There is not a pore of your body that he is not. There is not a simple beat of the heart that he is not. There is not a particle of so-called matter that he is not. Nothing without him. And yet, where is he? Oh, where is he? His non-presence is so complete that people question his existence. So we have atheists, huh? There isn't any God anywhere. Where is he? You know? Show him to me. And, you know, there's a story about Ramakrishna. And one time in his life, he became a priest in a temple. I'm not going to go into all of this because it takes all day. Then I'm here all day. You know, he made it 4 ways. He went one religion, another religion, another religion, another religion, and made it 4 times, this enlightenment business. And somewhere down there, you know, he wanted to know something about a certain thing, so he became a priest of a temple, and the trustees filed a suit against him. And he was called before a committee, the trustees, and he was charged. Do you know about the Hindu religion? They, at morning, noon, and night, they have meditation period and they have a chanting period. And this is done in a separate little building, and they have this dawn in there also, where they sit around, you know. And down in the bottom of this thing here, they have this little shrine set up, and this is where they offer food and flowers to the Divine Mother. I mean, she has given it to us, and this is the first fruits, and it's returned. You know, you give back. You know. So now Ramakrishna is charged by this committee that he tasted the food before it was offered for worship. I mean, it's like, you know, in the monastery, you take this little food and you set it aside, and that's for the Buddha. And then you eat. But you do that first. You don't eat and then put it there. You don't give him any leftovers. You do the first. I mean, even in the Bible, you know, it's the first offerings. The first. You know, Isaac gave his first son. You always tithe the first 10%. It's the first. You don't spend it and then give it. You give it first and then spend. Or, you know, so this is what they're told. Anyway, he's charged with tasting the food before he offered it in his worship. And Ramakrishna said, you know, well, when my mother used to feed me when I was a little kid, she always tasted the food first. Yeah? How can I offer my Divine Mother what has not been tested? You see. And so these trustees begin to wring their hands. Oh, no, no. They're filled with despair. What are they going to do with some kind of a person like this? And what mother is he talking about anyway? This temple was theirs. You know, the idol was one, that the shrine there that had been created for them. And this man must be crazy. And he was employed by them with you know, so much a month, which a really pitiful amount. And they had spent thousands on the temple and thousands more on the shrine. And this man with practically no pay had the temerity to say that he would rather leave the job than offer this untasted food to his mother. And he insisted on smelling the flowers before offering them to her to make sure that they would not offend her. Yeah. And so the members of the board looked at each other. This is really unbelievable. What are they going to do? And then they turned, you know, and they looked at him, and they looked in his eyes. They believed him. Yeah. He had a very mysterious qualification. Somehow they knew that he knew. See? They knew, he knew that God is, but he isn't. And there are those who know. There are those who have this art, this talent for seeing in the absence. And the rest of us all feel left out. Naturally. You're all left out, huh? So what do? We run around looking for miracles. Yeah. There must be some kind of a miracle that can happen so that I can see. But what's not visible to other people. And there must be some kind of a miracle that's going to happen so that I can hear. Let us go to a church that does miracles. Yeah. Let us look for a teacher who will teach us miracles. Now, because whatever his name was, Dr. Rama, not long ago, he's now teaching Zen after years of other things. He has this big ad in the paper. He's going to have an evening of Zen, and it's free, and 850 people came. Yeah, and they were all looking for a miracle. Somehow he was going to do this miracle that they walked in, and when they walked out, they would know all about Zen. And, and then have Satori and Kensho and all the rest of it, huh? They were going to have enlightenment without any effort, because this is what he promises. You come with me for a week over to Hawaii, and you will be enlightened. Or we could go spend a week in the desert, or we can go to the Caribbean, and let's go, And this is what he does. Neat, huh? Man. It's for me, boy. And there are people that swallow fire, and there are people that what do you call it when you can? I've forgotten all those things. Well, levitation. You know a story about the man who knew how to really levitate? He lived in Chicago when I did. He would go up to the 14th floor in a hotel room, and he would get a corner room, where you have a window this way and a window this way, and he would levitate out this window and back in this window, 14 stories up in the air. Charming. And there are those. What do they call it when? Because we were sitting in the room, and this little old man is sitting there, and he's performing these miracles, and he's got these flowers out in the yard. He's a gardener. He loves them, and in come the flowers, roots and all. They're in the air. You get a flower. You can go home and plant it, and it'll grow. And you can go outside and look, and you can see where it had been. What do they call that? No. There's a name for that.
Where they move?
No, there's a name for it,
Energize, speedy up, Scotty. From Star Trek, every issue.
Great way to do your garden.
Yeah, can you do that with weeds too? Isn't that materialization? What is it?
Materialization, that's what it is. Yeah. Okay, now we come to somebody like Vivekananda. And you know his name, and you know that he was an enlightened man. Or at least I'm telling you that he was. So you believe it. Besides, there's lots of books written about him. Ramakrishna was his teacher, and so this guy did it too. Let us say he was alive today. I mean, he was very turned down when he came to the States. I mean, people wouldn't have anything to do with him because he was supposed to speak at the Council of Churches in Chicago, and they turned him down, even though he was listed coming from Hindu. He's going to do the Vedanta thing there. And strange how things happen. He was dark, and they wouldn't have him. The great Council of Churches, refusing a man who really knows. So he decided he would see what Chicago looked like, and he got on a streetcar. And a woman sat down next to him eventually, riding around on a streetcar all over Chicago. And she talked to him, and she asked him what he was doing there and where he was from and so on. And he told her, and he went on to explain how come he was riding on a streetcar, that he had been turned down to this, out to this thing. And it turned out that her husband was the vice president of something or another on the thing, and by God, the next day he was on. You never know. You never know. The winds of chance, they blow. Be ready all the time. Anyway, let's say Vivekananda now was in town, and he was advertising that he was going to give a lecture, and that at that lecture he would perform a miracle. Lots of people come. Yeah. Not to see Vivekananda, but to see the miracle that he would perform. What he is representing, the state that he would be representing, is totally forgotten. Now, Jesus said too, you look for signs and you will get nothing. I should have been an evangelist.
There might be an opening.
And he brings in $145 million a year. Man, have we got it made. Oh.
What about the sex? Gotta have that to go along with it.
Oh, yeah. I'll figure that out. Oh. Then, you see, we have the other side of the coin. My God, how can it take so long?
We started very late.
Oh, we did? Okay. When you get tired of it, go like this and I'll quit. Right. I mean it. You got that choice. That's a dirty laugh if I ever heard one. Are we all right over there?
Well, I had to put the cat out and leave the babies and came off and locked the door. I just hope she isn't too upset by the time we get back.
Oh, my.
No, I told her, I said, that kid has been living with Rosalind for a lot of years. She'll sit there at the door and just...
Oh, yeah. Wait. Just like mine would. Okay. I'll go on for a little bit. We have another side to this coin. We say, God created this world. Well, now, not only did God create the world, but he is in the world. So we say that the world is God manifest. All of this is manifestation of God. It's not matter at all. It's a manifestation of God. There you are. Manifestation of God. Then, if you look at it from that point of view, then everything in this world is a miracle. There is nothing in this world that is not a miracle. A seed turns into a tree after dying in the ground. Isn't that a miracle? A caterpillar spins a cocoon around itself, and when it breaks out, it's a butterfly. What more of a miracle can there be than that, huh? Clouds move in the sky, and the birds sing, and the crows rat, rat, rat every morning, and they argue out there, and in the morning, all of a sudden, here comes the sun, and in the evening, it absents itself from us again, and in the morning, it presents itself again. See? The grass grows. The grass grows. And then on top of everything else, there is man. And isn't that a miracle? Huh? Watching this kind of a magic show, where everything is a miracle, this has to do with religion. Watching the other kind of magic show that they label religion is not. And it is your freedom of choice. You can choose. You can choose. the miracles for real or the magic show? And now, Lao Tzu in this chapter 11 in the Tao Te Ching is what it is. He speaks of the usefulness of the empty, or the usefulness of that which is void, and the actuality of the other, the relativity. The actuality, this is actual, you see. And this is actual. This is God actual. And then there is a use for it, or a function. Now, the emptiness now is not just a word that's spoken, and it's not just an image that one has in the mind of empty. There is a vast non-existence in which you live. But to see it, you see, there is what is called an abyss that must be crossed before you reach that non-existence. And this is spoken of in most mystical religions. And one looks at this now and then, and it does do away with the eagerness. And it does somehow give us some fear. And another reason that we hold ourselves back in a way is that we might, if we really choose now to put everything we got in this thing, we just might fail in the attempt. And then we got egg on our face. No. So we dinkle along. Now, life is manifest and or non-manifest. We can say either one. Manifest is this world existing, and then there is the non-existing or the non-manifestation, and that, or this, we must find. So that prior to existence, there is a non-existence. Or sometimes we say non-being. Now I'm going to ask a question. What about being? There is non-being and being and all this manifestation. Yeah? Well, in all of this relativity, where is the being? Do you see any being? Once in a while we have a sense of being, as it were. But what about this being itself? What is it? Where is it? What we see here in this, as that we call relativity, all this world, this is all the activity of being. Where is the being? That this is the activity thereof. What do you think? What do you think? Being is not what you would call myself. That's ego. What is this being? That all this is the activity thereof. And being is not non-being, that is yet to come. This state of being, what is it? Well, some people would say, well, that's God. Being is God. So then we have a personal God. We have a loving God. We have this loving Father. We have a knowing Father. We have a seeing Father. He sees everywhere. He knows everything. He loves us as no other one will ever love us. He is a powerful Father. He will do whatever I ask. This being. Evangelism. But the Christian mystics and the mystics of other religions, they speak of a Godhead. You know? Something that transcends God. Now what are you going to do? Now we have something in the Kabbalistic system, you know. We have this Chokmah, Bina, and Kether. You know, this transcends the psyche, the ruach, the spirit, huh? And it, you know, and this, they got this thing over the Kether is the crown, the crown of everything. So, and it's like Buddha with his 1,000 eyes, and in India it's, what do they got there? Something. Maybe that's where they get the 1,000 eyes. Anyway, you know, when everything's open and it's 1,000 eyes, okay, to see everywhere, like a fly. Yeah, okay. Kether is the crown, and then there's something above this, you see. And Bina is the mother. That's the feminine. She is the black mother. And we have Chokmah, which is the masculine. So, now this is the higher triad, right? And beyond this triad, beyond Kether, transcending Kether, we've got Ein Sof Hour. Now, our, A-U-R, comes from aurum, which is the Latin word for gold. Ein Sof Hour. And then transcending Ein Sof Hour is Ein Sof. And then transcending Ein Sof is Ein. You know. Anyway, that's the Godhead. Ein Sof Hour, the gold. And, you know, and Ein Sof means nothing. So we have got now, in the Kabbalistic system, a golden nothing. Yeah. Mystical Judaism. Anyway, we look at life from our vantage point, whatever that point may be. Just remember, it's a point. We look at life, and as we're growing up, and maybe until about the time we're 45 or something like that, we take it all rather superficially. You know, and here comes the expression, what you sees is what you gets. Yeah. And we don't realize, and we don't understand. And we're not told, really, that there is this void, this emptiness. Certainly in all the looking that I did as a teenager, you know, running around 3 months here and 3 months there at the churches all up and down the street and blah, 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 you know, I don't remember ever being told that there was this big emptiness. Were you? No. I was not told that which we do not see, that which is considered as not present, this is nothing, is the whole support of existence. Nobody ever told me that. No. And yet our whole vantage point, everything we do and feel and think, the body, everything depends on it. This support we don't see. One of the... I'm going to shut up, huh? Why don't you shut me up? Shut up. Okay, shut up. Okay. So maybe you could find out what supports you.
If you find Lola's talks valuable, more will be posted in weeks to come.